Good day, everyone. This is Evelyn Ackah from Ackah Business Immigration Law. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today, we are speaking about all things related to startup visas in Canada, as well as other opportunities and ways to come to Canada as a business immigrant. So I hope that those of you that will be attending will be able to ask questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. But today, our topic for June 19th, 2019 is startup visas and entrepreneur business immigration to Canada. So as you know, we do a lot of work at Ackah Business Immigration Law related to immigration for both professionals and companies. And obviously the name says it for itself. We do a lot of corporate and business immigration law, but we also definitely assist with individuals with personal immigration. So if you have any questions or needs, feel free to contact us at accalaw.com. Today I'm going to speak about the startup visa category, and I'm going to be referring to lots of paper because it's quite complicated. We want to make sure we give you as much information as we can during this discussion. And again, you can also reach me on our Ask Immigration Lawyer Evelyn Ackah podcast, and you can sign up for it where you sign up for all podcasts, and hopefully you'll be able to get regular useful information. For those of us who are trying to reach us at the firm, you can contact us through accalaw.com, and you can also try our phone number, 403-452-9515, 403-452-9515. So the Startup Visa Program is a permanent residence stream that allows for people who own their businesses to qualify for permanent residence in Canada. And it's one of those programs that the government launched. It was in 2013 as a pilot program, and it became a permanent program in March of 2018. The real focus of the Startup Visa Program is for those that are entrepreneurs that are just launching or who have a business somewhere else and want to then launch a related business in Canada with the relationships they would have in Canada with incubators and venture capitals and other kind of designated organizations. So the way it works is you must be a new business with the intention of operating in Canada. And then, in order to obtain permanent residence, you have to be able to find a sponsor of some sort. And usually, to be eligible, I'm going to go through the criteria, but usually to be eligible, you need to find an angel investor group, a venture capital fund, or a business incubator approved by the Minister of Immigration that will invest or support your startup. And that long list of venture capitals, funds, investor groups, angel investor groups, and incubators are on the Immigration and Refugee Canada website under the Startup Visa category. So in order to be eligible, and one thing I will say is most of the companies that come to us who ask about the Startup Visa are technical. They usually are high-tech, app-based, cloud-based. They're looking for support for technology in order to launch their business venture in Canada. Most of them are technology type of businesses. So in order to be eligible, I'm going to go through the criteria. You must have no more than 5 people who are applying for permanent residence as a part of the same business venture. And that means that there can't be more than 5 partners in the business that are eligible or applying for permanent residence. Because when you're selected under the Startup Visa Program, you are issued permanent resident status. We'll talk about other ways to come in after we discuss the Startup Visa category. Each applicant under the Startup Visa category must hold at least 10% or more of the voting shares in the startup. So you need to think about how you're structured before you apply for the Startup Visa so that you comply. And the applicant and the designated organization must jointly hold more than 50% of the voting rights. So that means the applicant and, for instance, an incubator that you're going to be working with that has selected you must hold more than 50% of the voting rights of the new business that you're starting in Canada. And the owners must be actively engaged in the business. So for instance, you can't just say, I want to start up a business so I can get permanent residence. You must be able to show that you're committed to the business, that you're planning to work in this area, and that even ideally if you have experience back home doing the same type of work, it will help qualify you so that you can be selected in an incubator or for venture capital as well. You must also be an essential part of the business that will be operating from Canada. So if you have a business overseas and you want to then launch a startup in Canada related to it, the primary location of that business should be Canada if it's a new opportunity or new venture. And the business must be incorporated in Canada. So giving you this long list of eligibility criteria because it's important. We get a lot of calls from people that don't meet the criteria at the stage that they reach us, and they need to go back and review step by step to ensure that they do meet the criteria before we will even begin an application on their behalf. In order to be approved as well for the startup visa, you must have a letter of support from a designated investor organization. So that investor must be investing at least $200,000 if it's a Canadian venture capital fund, or at least $75,000 if it's an angel investor fund. And if it's a business incubator, it must certify that it's accepted you and your program and business into their own program. And it must be in the form of investment by way of buying shares or other equity in the business. So before I go further, I want to just give you a sense of the list. There's a very long list of what they consider designated organizations. I'm looking at it now, and it goes from everything from BDC, venture capital, lots of different venture capitals, maybe 25, all the way from BDC Venture Capital to Yaletown Venture Capitals, from A to Y. And then they also have angel investors that also are investing. And right now there's about 10 to 12 on that list so that you can reach out to with your business idea and do your pitch and hope that they will support you with the funding you need in order to move to Canada under the startup visa category. In terms of business incubators, these have all been approved by Immigration Canada, and there's a very long list of them, probably 30, and they're in every province in Canada. And so that means that you would need to look to them to see if what you're doing fits into the business incubator's strategy. And if you apply and they accept you, their approval will definitely help you along your way in meeting the eligibility criteria to qualify for the startup visa program. Are there any questions at this point in terms of the program that I can assist you with? Right now I'm just getting notes of people that are participating in the call. The other thing that's really important about this is that you, as the startup visa owner or the startup company owner, must own the intellectual property. You must have good record keeping. You must be able to show your financials. So there's a lot that goes into these applications. We don't take them lightly in order to qualify. The other requirement is language. Much like most of the permanent residence categories in Canada, you must be able to speak English or French at a certain level. And for this program, you must attain a Canadian language benchmark of at least 5 in either English or French, and that's for reading, writing, listening, and speaking. So that if you don't meet that criteria, then you will not be eligible for the startup category. Another thing that you have to consider when you're doing the startup visa is what are the funds you have or the funds you will need to move to Canada to support your family while you're launching this brand new business. And one of the things is, for instance, a family of 4, you must have approximately $24,000 a year for a family of 4 to qualify for this category. And it depends, if you're on your own, it's less. Obviously, it's more like $15,000 a year, but you need to be able to show that you have available funds to support yourself, since this is a startup. And you have to plan to settle in a province other than Quebec. As I mentioned, Quebec has its own complete different business visitor and business visa categories for investment and entrepreneurs. It's very different from the rest of Canada, and so every other province but Canada you would be looking to settle in. And of course the standard security clearances for Canada, including biometrics and medical examination, to make sure that you are fit to move to Canada. Okay, so that is essentially the basic requirements, that long list of how to move to Canada under the startup visa business category. one of the things I noticed is we get a lot of people calling us from different parts of the world, or they might even be in Canada. Sometimes we have people who went to university here and they want to stay and they have a business idea. Usually it is, as I said, tech-based. And so then the issue becomes, how do they move into the program? They may not at this point qualify, but they can look to start the process from here and work through the incubator systems across the country to get selected. But sometimes when they reach us or approach us, they haven't yet qualified because they don't have a business plan, or they don't have the technology, or they haven't put all the steps in place, and then we can't help them at that point because they're not quite ready. So before you reach out to lawyers or to us, I always recommend take a look at the Immigration Refugee Canada website and make sure that you fit each and every criteria, or that you can fit, and then you can call us. We can have a conversation about what are the next steps, assuming everything else qualifies for you. What is the next step? So once you've identified that you qualify, the next thing is you need to fill out the application. And it's pretty extensive application that, if you miss anything, it'll come back. So make sure you complete it as fully as possible. If you need legal assistance, seek out qualified lawyers or immigration consultants to help you with this. There is a government fee as well, obviously, for permanent residents. It is $1,050. And then depending on the number of family members you're coming with as well, the fee will increase. So that's something to think about in addition to biometrics. Biometrics are the pictures and fingerprints that you must take so that the government can do its security searches and make sure everything is legitimate and you're in good shape to come to Canada. As I've mentioned as well, you must do the medical. So everybody in the family that is coming with you under the startup visa category must go through a medical if they're over 18 and over. Okay, so what IRCC does is they look at the application from is it complete? Did you provide as much information as possible? Did you show them details about what you're planning on doing? Is there a business plan in the application? Do you have approval and confirmation of approval for incubation with the company? Or do you have venture capital funding or angel investor funding? There are other ways under this program to actually come to Canada, and I want to talk about that as well. And in terms of timing for this, it seems like it's all over the map. I've seen it as quick as 6 months, and I've seen it take as long as 2 years. So it really depends also on country of citizenship, how long this process will take, and how qualified you are for a successful application. Those are all things to consider. Does your background seem to fit the stream for the startup visa? For instance, if you're a chef and then the next day you're going to be coming in as a technology startup, you have to consider, how did you make that connection? How did you make that bridge? Will you be successful in your venture? Because that is what Canada is looking for. We are looking for highly skilled professionals and business owners with entrepreneurial endeavors that are going to come to Canada, create jobs for Canadians, and train and share their knowledge and best practices with Canadians. That is the goal of the Startup Visa program. So one of the other things I want to mention about the Startup Visa program, after you've got your designated organizations under your belt and you've selected the province you want to live in, as I indicated, everybody in the family will need to have a valid passport to move through the process, of course, to come to Canada. One thing I want to mention is there might be a way for you to come to Canada before you get your permanent residence, and that would be under getting a work permit. So sometimes startup visa participants are able to come to Canada before they initiate the permanent residence final stage. And this way they can be in Canada working and contributing and kind of launching what their plan is. And in order to come in under the short-term work permit, it's under the International Mobility Program. There is an application category for Startup Visa Program. So it says here in the policy, only foreign nationals who have received a commitment certificate and a letter of support issued by a designated entity may be considered for a short-term work permit. And this means that only those who have the relationship with an incubator or a venture capital fund or an angel investor fund can look to come to Canada under a short-term work permit while they're also in the permanent residence process for the startup visa. If you meet all those eligibility criteria, then you can apply, and you don't need to apply for your permanent residence first. If you meet all the criteria, you can come as a worker and then start your permanent residence application from inside Canada. So those are all decisions that people need to make. And the commitment certificate is valid for 6 months from the day it is issued. So you must submit your application for permanent residence within 6 months once you get it, before it expires, okay, whether or not you apply for a work permit. One thing I find about this program is it's very, very specific, and I sometimes unfortunately hear from people who haven't done everything strictly according to the eligibility criteria, and then therefore they lose out on the opportunity to come to Canada under the startup visa program. So we always recommend be incredibly accurate, speak to an advisor, get good advice, check again and triple check again, and make sure that everything is complete. It's really tragic to find that at the end of the stage, you did something wrong or incomplete, and now you've lost that opportunity to come to Canada. Okay, so that's one thing I highly want to stress, is do it right the first time. For us as lawyers, it's really hard to fix a mistake or an error or an oversight, because then you're already in the system and it makes it much harder to change things up. I'm going to pause here and see if there's anybody on the Facebook Live with us who has any questions at all that I can answer. Just put up your hand, write a comment in the notes. Thank you for being here with us at Ackah Business Immigration Law. We really appreciate it. One thing, I want to switch gears now, move from the startup visa category if there are no questions, and I want to talk about the self-employed persons category. We get calls about this as well very regularly for people who may be running businesses successfully overseas and they want to come in under this category. And so because the category is focused on cultural and sports, it's focused on those in the artistic and cultural fields. So things like authors and writers, creative performing artists, musicians, painters, sculptors, and other visual artists, technical support, and those jobs in the motion industry, pictures industry, creative designers, and craftspeople. So the self-employed persons program is focused on culture and those who are investing and producing cultural works of art, you know, who are in the arts, and not necessarily for people who are running traditional type businesses. And so that is sometimes an area where people call and say, oh, I'm in the arts, you know, I want to move to Canada. And it's not so simple, because we need to see that you've been able to support yourself at least 2 years, more is for sure preferred, where you've been working in your field, primarily full-time in your field. And sometimes we can even look to sports. Sometimes there's opportunities under that as well. But for the most part, it is focused on arts. So we've had photographers who work full-time overseas as photographers. And we've had people who are in the film industry who work full-time in that area. And we have to be able to show, how are they supporting themselves? Let's talk about how much money they're making every year. Will they be able to come to Canada and continue in the self-employed stream? Because they're basing it on your history. So when I say to people, you know, I'd need to take a look at the last 2 to 5 years. You can't be just dabbling as an artist or doing a little painting on the side. The idea is you're coming here under the self-employed category with a work permit or self-employed permanent residence. And that means you are sponsoring yourself. And the government must be satisfied that you can support yourself in Canada and your family doing your art, working in your field. And so there is a high threshold for this program as well. It's not for everybody. And it's, as I said, it's not for people that are just casually working in the arts. They must be committed to it full time, making money, a significant amount of money from the perspective of being able to support themselves and do well. So that's really all I have right now in terms of the startup visa program and the self-employed program. One thing I really want to stress is Ackah Business Immigration Law, we do work for a lot of companies. And so sometimes when people call us and they have an idea of which program they think they qualify for, it could be the startup visa program. They say, I want to do this. And then the more we probe and ask, we do questions, we'll do a consultation. We charge $500 for 1 hour consultation in order to gather all the information, rather than saying, yes, you qualify, let's start, only to find that you don't qualify later on when we have our long list of documents that we need. So sometimes what we do is, if you're running a successful business overseas, we will consider, why not incorporate or register a business in Canada and then apply for other means of coming to Canada, such as an intercompany transfer. That way you're moving to Canada with your family, you're launching your related business in Canada with your family, and you're also looking to grow and create jobs in Canada. This is another strategy we use very successfully, working with our tax advisors, making sure everything is in place so that the person and the company can transfer and continue operating without some of the stringent regulations and rules of the startup visa program, which is very, very strict as to who qualifies. And then when somebody's here with their families working, they've created a couple jobs or more, they've transferred their key executives or managers to Canada, then they can look at options for permanent residence. So this is one of the strategies we use regularly. We've been very successful with this with clients from all over the world. And so if you're interested to talk with me or one of the members of my team about permanent residency, about moving to Canada with your business, feel free. Contact us at @𝒂𝒐𝒏.com, or you can reach out at 403-452-9515, and we have a 1-800 number as well on our website. Feel free to reach out to us, and we'd be happy to go through the process with you, to talk through your options and let you know what's going to work for you and give you some knowledge. I hope that this has been a helpful podcast. If you have any questions about the Startup Visa Program, the Self-Employed Program, or any other business or personal immigration matters, feel free to reach out to us. Have a wonderful day. Thank you again for joining me here at Ackah Business Immigration Law. Take care. Bye-bye.